Იუსტიციის სახლი. Ყველაფერი ერთ სივრცეში.
Lord Harry's of Pentragar.
I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, the government is always willing to learn from examples of good practice from overseas. I compliment the noble Lord for highlighting the Georgia case. He may be aware that the US Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, has just made some very complimentary remarks about the Georgian public service halls. The wider public sector in the UK has already done a great deal on one-stop shops, working across organisational boundaries and making it easier for customers to access services in a more joined-up fashion. The implementation of the government's digital by default agenda will provide government information and services online and in one place that will be simpler, clearer and faster for users.
I thank the Minister for his reply, and I am indeed aware of the government's desire to reform public service provision. But as he has mentioned, the example of Georgia is truly remarkable. Driving when I was there recently to one such public service hall, our escort asked us for our details. When we arrived only 15 minutes later, we were all presented with replica Georgian passports. This was just one example of the speed and the user-friendly approach of these. And so will the Minister encourage different government departments first to look at the actual design of these halls, because whatever we're going to have in the way of digital provision, there will still need to be a place where some people can go? And secondly, will he encourage government departments to see how they can work together, perhaps with the post office, in such public service halls?
I congratulate Mr. Harishvili on his new citizenship. The question of design, I've looked at the pictures of some of these new Georgia public service halls, and I have to say they are magnificent buildings on a scale that I think would be not easily accepted by the media in this country. Very well done, easier for a country that's coming out of the socialist era in the way that Georgia is doing so. The government is very much aware, however, that the Georgian provision does depend heavily on using new technology, and that thus parallels exactly what we are attempting to do with the digital by default exercise.
My Lord.
Georgia is a small and faraway country of which we tend to know very little, though this afternoon we know a little more. The question raised by Lord Harris of Pentragarth is extremely important about the way in which Georgia has developed one-stop shops. I was with him on the visit to the facility in Rustavi. I've also got a passport issued by the Georgians in double quick time. I also went to a similar facility in Mastir, which is a small community high up in the Caucasus, where exactly the same provision is being extended. This modernised interface between public and the state, which these facilities embody, is highly impressive. The Minister may not want to take it from me, but he's already mentioned Secretary of State Clinton, who said, since he didn't quote her words, it's a very creative and impressive advancement, a modern technological wonder. So I wonder if the Minister would reflect on this and possibly consider inviting a delegation of Georgians to come to this country to share best practice with us.
My Lords, I received a detailed briefing from the Georgian embassy this morning, they having discovered that I was due to answer the question. We are doing a number of things which work in the same direction. We're looking at the provision of the public service estate, and the capital assets pathfinder exercise working between central and local government is precisely looking at how you can bring offices together so that services are integrated. In Hampshire, the new Havant Public Service Village, which is the furthest along in this development, is a project which will bring together Hampshire County Council, Havant Borough Council, Hampshire PCT, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police, Capita, the Citizens Advice Bureau and other voluntary sector partners in the same building. The aim is to transform public service delivery in Havant. That's very much the sort of thing we have in mind. Incidentally, that will save a considerable amount of space by the time it's finished.
My Lords, have G4S been to Georgia? And if not, why not?
My Lords, G4S is an international company, but I have absolutely no idea as to whether they have yet been engaged in Georgia.
My Lords, in view of the £4 billion...
My Lords, we're about to have elections for police commissioners with only things on the web and no leaflets. Digital by default that he's mentioned will do for some. There are a lot of people who need, whether it's passports, licences, all sorts of other things, debt advice as well. Could the no Lord Minister perhaps himself go to Georgia or send Francis Maud there to see what we could learn that people still need some face-to-face advice?
My Lord, I've been to Georgia 3 times in the last 15 years and would love to go again. The speed at which our population are moving towards using digital services is quite remarkable. And the estimates of how many people will use digital services by preference in 10 years' time, I find, as someone who is of the older generation, if I may put it tactfully, like everyone else here, very encouraging. But of course there will still be a need for assistance, as there is in Georgia and as there is in the Haven't exercise, for people who don't find digital access quite so easy, to help them use facilities that are more easily available online.
My Lords, in view of the £4 billion new investment programme announced today for our rail network, does the Minister agree that it needs to be accompanied by a more streamlined planning system, and that following the abolition of the Infrastructure Planning Commission, the Secretary of State has become the one-stop shop for major projects? And will he confirm that the planning process will be better as a consequence?
My Lord, I think that's a little wide of the... But I did book my train tickets for the next 2 weekends from London to Saltaire online this morning, so I think I'm doing something that's moving in the right direction in terms of the use of digital means. But in terms of planning, all that I've done as far as the railways this morning is to check what exactly the Castlefield corridor is, which is part of the new Northern Hub.
My Lords, isn't my noble friend the Minister aware that there is absolutely no need for him to go to Georgia, nor indeed for visitors to be brought over from there, when they have a really excellent ambassador from Georgia here in London? And may I suggest that perhaps that he talked to the ambassador?
My Lords, I'm embarrassed to admit that I taught the current Georgian ambassador in 1995-6.
აიღეთ პასპორტი, პირადობის, დაბადების და ქორწინების მოწმობები, მიიღეთ მოქალაქეობა, დაარეგისტრირეთ ქონება თუ ბიზნესი, ისარგებლეთ აღსრულებისა და ნოტარიუსთა პალატის სერვისი, გაეცემით მუდმივად განახლებად სტატისტიკასა და საინტერესო ფაქტებს. მიიღეთ პასუხი თქვენთვის აქტუალურ კითხვებზე საიტის გიდისგან 24 საათის განმავლობაში. www.house.gov.g. იუსტიციის სახლი. ყველაფერი ერთ სივრცეში.